Hey, it's Armin with Attract. At Attract Advisors, we offer accounting advisory, tax advisory, as well as financial management services. We're lucky enough to work with very many hardworking, talented entrepreneurs across many different industries. Many of these individuals are world-class in their sphere and have great stories to tell. This is our way of highlighting their accomplishments and their insights, and we hope you enjoy these conversations. Hey, it's Armin with Attract, and today we are talking to a close friend of ours, close friend of the company and the pod, TJ Woodard. TJ Woodard is the owner, along with his wife Amy, of Prescriptions to Go in Baton Rouge. TJ, thanks for talking to us today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
So, right off the bat, just why don't you give us a little bit of background on your introduction, where you grew up, and maybe a little bit about the family.
Okay. Elevator pitch here. So I'm originally from North Louisiana, from Bossier City. Born and raised there, grew up in Bossier. I kind of graduated from airline high school and tried about every college in the state over the years, trying to figure out what I was doing. I ended up going to pharmacy school in Monroe at ULM, and it's where I met my wife, Amy. She's also a pharmacist. We were in the same class. And she's from Ville Platte, which, if you're not familiar, is kind of south central Louisiana. It's like the kind of the northern edge of Cajun country, but I love it there. But we graduated pharmacy school and really didn't know what we were going to do or what we wanted to do. And I had gone to LSU, still had some friends here, so we decided to just move here while we try to kind of figure things out. Always thought it would be kind of a short-term deal. I really thought we would end up in Lafayette as kind of a compromise. But anyway, that was 2007, and here we are. We have two girls, 15 and 12, and then our youngest, Wesley, is 9, just turned 9. So 3 kids, couple of businesses, and again, Amy's a pharmacist, so we try not to be at the same store at the same times. But we're here in 2000, I guess it was 12. I convinced Amy to let me open a pharmacy, and I'll kind of get into why later, but here we are. So almost 20 years later, and we're still here. Now it's home.
Well, what made you, I guess first, if I back up a little bit, what made you decide on pharmacy in school? And then what was the linchpin to kind of convince you, once you got into it professionally, to go out on your own and start your own business?
Great question. I mean, I don't have a succinct answer on that, but it kind of evolved, much like I think things probably always do. But I did well in high school, and, kind of math and science was my deal. And
Valedictorian, I think I might have heard somewhere about that.
There are several. We didn't just have one. So,
Okay.
yeah. And I'm sure we did the aptitude test or whatever. And I actually started out, I went to Louisiana Tech right out of high school and started out in engineering. And I like, I'm an analytical guy on some things. I like numbers. But engineering just really wasn't for me. I think it tends to be more introverts that kind of do that. And I'm kind of the other way, but did that for a year and then realized, I didn't really want to do that. Then it was kind of med school. And again, I don't really know why, other than kind of people just told me that's what I should do, something with math and science. So, was kind of in that in biological sciences, and I enjoyed that. But then you kind of have to start getting serious about the MCAT and med school. And I was, I kind of had a conversation with myself, like, is this really what you want to do with your life? And I would tell anybody that don't go into medicine unless you really like it. Doctors do well financially, they make good money. And I knew, I guess, inherently, even at a young age, that if I wasn't like all in on it, then it probably wasn't a good idea. So at that point, I really didn't know what I wanted to do. And one of my good friends, is still my best friend at the time, we kind of started kicking around ideas of what else to do. And he was like, well, I mean, pharmacy school is similar, and not quite as long as med school and get a good career and that sort of thing. So honestly, it was just kind of like, okay, well, if you're going, I'll give it a shot. And don't really know why. I never had a thought of being a pharmacist growing up or anything, but I do enjoy pharmacy. I would say owning a business and being a business owner and, entrepreneur, whatever you want to call it, is completely different than being a pharmacist. And so
Right.
the I'm really good at some things and not really good at other things. So, but pharmacy itself, I really love, and it's really cliche and cheesy, but I like helping people, and it's really not even, yes, medicine related, but really more just, I like making things that shouldn't be complicated. Uh, I like solving problems for people that shouldn't be complicated, but are for whatever reason. So, I guess that's kind of how we landed there. And like I said, Amy, I met her. She was in my pharmacy school class, and we graduated together. So, looking back, it worked out all right.
And when you got out of school, you guys were working for just some pharmacies like in stores, right? I mean, that's kind of how you started.
Yeah. Again, when we graduated, we really didn't know what we wanted to do. They were really starting to push kind of like residencies. You After you graduate as a pharmacist, you do another year or 2 years, whatever, and kind of specialize in uh, more clinical type services or infectious disease, something like that. I was just ready to be out and start making money and get a big boy job. So Amy and I went to work for a large chain pharmacy. It's kind of just what everybody did. Again, the thought of opening my own pharmacy never crossed my mind. But we just signed on with the chain, and I was kind of taught by my parents growing up, like a job is something you get paid to do, not necessarily something you love. And
Right.
so I was like, I can suffer through whatever. And it's better than, my dad worked in refineries, and, in August in Louisiana and fire retardant coveralls isn't a lot of fun. So, um, having said that, I was there for about a year. Amy was there a little longer, and I realized I made a bad decision. It was, it really, it's physically and mentally exhausting working for the chain. And that's when I finally realized, like, I wouldn't say I'm necessarily a union guy, but like, I get it to
Right.
some extent when, I mean, working conditions and stress, and it just wasn't a lot of fun. And it was also physically exhausting. I mean, we worked the first year, um, our standard shift was 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. with no lunch break. And we don't, you eat standing up or whenever you can. So after about your third or fourth 14-hour day in a row, it's physically and mentally exhausting. So I knew at some point, like, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not this.
Right. So what was the birth of Prescriptions to Go?
Well, there's one step in the middle. And I was at said chain pharmacy, and all hell was breaking loose one day, and I was a floater. So I went to different locations. I was basically relief if someone was sick or on vacation, so, which was neat because I got to see a lot of different things, interact with a lot of different people. Uh, it was a particularly bad and stressful day, and like a headhunter called the pharmacy line, and I answered, and he was like, "Hey, do you know anybody looking for a job at medium-sized a medium-sized grocery store pharmacy?" And I was like, "Yeah, me." And so I left there and went to a grocery store chain pharmacy. It was much better, a lot less stressful, but still kind of, I don't mind being an employee, but I don't like following stupid rules that are, why do we do that? Well, that's the way we do it, or that's the corporate policy. Honestly, it sounds so petty and childish, but one of the biggest battles we had was, like, I didn't want to wear a tie. Like, I had to dress up in this little clown outfit, with my lab coat, my little tie, and all this stuff. And I just fought them on it. And I was like, nobody here cares if I'm wearing a tie, which is, you will never see me wearing a tie at work now. But anyway, so went to the things started kind of slipping back into, I don't know what I'm going to do, but I don't think I can do this for 30 or 40 years. We didn't have kids at the time, so I actually went back and got my MBA at night at LSU to get out of pharmacy altogether. I mean, I was thinking something hospital management or nursing home management, something kind of tangentially related to the medical world, but not, just clocking in, being in a box for 12 or 14 hours and then going home. So, in long story long, that's one of my classmates in MBA school asked me if I considered opening a pharmacy in downtown Baton Rouge. He thought there was maybe a need for it and it might work. And that was where the seed was planted. And I just kind of started thinking, I love pharmacy. I don't hate pharmacy. I don't hate people. I hate big chain retail corporate pharmacy. So that's where, and my wife, if you know her, she's a saint for several reasons.
Yes.
Living with me is one, but she, we kind of had the discussion as a family. Again, we didn't have kids at the time, but if I'm going to do this, it's now or never.
Right.
And so she encouraged it. She supported me going back to school. Her, and I'll get into it, but she's from a family that owned and operated a small business. So she I think without that, she would have never agreed to it, without kind of growing up like that. And she was the breadwinner. She let me take this crazy shot. And looking back, it was on paper, it was a terrible idea, but I'm glad I didn't know then what I know now. I probably wouldn't have done it, but we didn't really have an option of failure. Right? I'm going to find a way to make this work. So.
Right. Well, so when y'all opened the first store downtown, you had a niche, I think, that set you apart. So talk about that.
Yeah. And I think it's, what is it? Necessity is the mother of all creation. Being downtown, if you're familiar with probably most downtowns, at Baton Rouge specifically, there are a lot of people, not necessarily a lot of people that live there, but work, live, visit, not a lot of parking, not a lot of, I had a tiny footprint, 1,000 square feet. So it wasn't like I'm going to have some big gift shop or, the chain CVS and Walgreens are on the busy corner with a 10,000 square foot store. I knew I didn't want to do that. So our niche, I guess, was kind of delivery. I had to offer delivery or I didn't think people would get their prescriptions filled with us. So the thought was, while people are living or working downtown, we can fill their prescription and deliver it to them. So when they get off work, they could just go straight home. So we started delivering on a bike, and just out of practicality, because it's not a lot of parking, not a lot of places to park a delivery vehicle. So hired some young guys, and they got on a bike and just started riding around downtown Baton Rouge delivering prescriptions. And people in Baton Rouge, South Louisiana in general, are just, generally speaking, they're just very loyal people, and they supported us, took a chance on us, and have been just super loyal to us from the beginning.
Yeah. And I mean, it's interesting looking back at it, because I think that's around the time that I probably met you, when you were getting the first store up and running.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I ever went in there, I mean, your door was a revolving door, and it was your delivery people.
Yeah.
And this was before COVID. This was before, like, it was normal. I mean, you could order, nowadays you can order a Big Mac and get it delivered. I mean, that was a novel concept then, right?
Yeah, you're right. With DoorDash and Amazon, and it's almost an afterthought now, but
Right.
it was kind of I would say, in pharmacy, especially independent pharmacy, delivery has always been far more common. The chains never did it, and there's a reason. Logistically, it's a nightmare, but that was the idea, was I have to remove the barriers to them coming to us. And if I can have someone hand them their prescription while they're at work, I think we'd have a lot better chance of growing the business. So yeah, I mean, and when I started, it was just me, and my first employee has been a technician with me at the first chain, the grocery store pharmacy, and then she went with me to open my own. Really took a chance on me, and it was just us two. And I didn't buy a book of business. I mean, when we opened the doors, it was, we're here and we don't have any prescriptions to fill, but we'd like to.
Yeah.
So in the first few months, I honestly wasn't completely honest with Amy, because I would come home and she's like, how's it going? I was like, that's going well. In the back of my mind, like, what have I done to my family? I mean, I was, at the end of the month, I was like calling people asking them, hey, do you need your blood pressure medicine filled? So it started kind of organically like that. But again, and we opened right next to like an urgent care kind of clinic downtown. So I knew we'd get some organic business that way. And my thought was, if you get some people in the door and take care of them, treat them well, copay is going to be the same. We take all insurance companies, all insurance cards. So if we can get them in and take care of them, you know, I think it will, the snowball will start rolling. And it was. And I mean, again, it's not really a novel idea, but I mean, I was there. It was really like a barbershop kind of downtown. Like when they walked in, I was standing right there. I got to know a ton of people that way and got to talk to everybody. I had a community coffee pot all day, every day. Some people would come 5 days a week, not even to pick up a prescription, get a cup of coffee, and we'd visit and they would leave. And I love that, you know.
Yeah.
From a business perspective, it's strictly business, it's all probably a terrible idea, but I think there are things that you can't always measure and monetize. Looking back, I think inherently that was kind of my marketing plan, was not to buy a bunch of billboards or, you know, advertise on TV or radio. It was, and we do some of that now, but it was just form genuine relationships with people so they know that I have a vested interest in taking care of their family. And if you do that, I think everything else kind of falls into place.
Yeah, and I mean, I really do. I remember, because I couldn't quote the year to you, obviously, but I remember either being, you know, getting at my master's, or maybe I just graduated, that kind of thing. And the first time I walked in there, I was like, I mean, it was like a textbook. Like, this guy has found a niche, and it's this delivery, and it's brilliant because he's got however many workers downtown, this captive market. And I remember, I mean, not to blow smoke at you, but I mean, I remember sitting in there and, you know, like you said, you got a couple folks by the coffee pot. And I mean, it was just like they were sitting in their living room, you know, and I was like, man, this guy's got it figured out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that I had it figured out at all, but and really, this was never even on my radar. But I mean, we deliver like literally to the Capitol, to the
Right.
governor's office, to the Senate floor, the House floor. So it turns out when you take care of some important people and make them feel important, and we'll get to that a little bit later, but those things matter in life. And it was really just kind of the presence when we deliver, again, to the House floor, and somebody forgot something out of town and they forgot their blood pressure medicine. There's actually a doctor that's always on call when they're in session. Okay. So if somebody's acutely ill, they can call something in, or forgot their meds or whatever. So we would take care of them, fill it real fast, run it over to them, deliver it, just to fix a problem. I mean, that was the only thought behind it. But other people would say, like, hey, what was that? What just happened? Oh, they delivered my medicine. So that part kind of, again, another organic way of growing the business. But there was not a lot of thought. I mean, really, to burst my own bubble, I guess. I would like to say I had like this strategic master plan and everything fell into place. I didn't really put that much thought behind it. It just, I guess I'm more of a simple-minded, old-fashioned type. Like, if you just do the right thing and take care of people, they'll take care of themselves. So
Yeah, and I think that's what it was. I think I might have been doing an internship at the Department of Revenue. And I think I walked down, you know, just to check you out, say hey or whatever. And I remember thinking to myself, like, God, he's got a whole building, you know, a 10-story building right there of just nothing but captive customers. And he could fill up a backpack and service 20, 30 people a day. And there's 15 other buildings that same size and walking distance from where he's at, you know.
I mean, that helped us a ton. I mean, there was a company like right around the corner from us that, you know, had several floors on a big high rise. They had a nurse practitioner on staff. So they started calling things to us. And so ton of state workers downtown, which kind of backfired during COVID because,
Right.
you know, my niche business model is delivering to people when they're at work, and they're not at work, they're working from home. So, but what was crazy was almost to a person, like those folks never gave up on us. I mean, they would drive, some of them a fair distance, like drive downtown to still come pick their medication up when they really probably shouldn't have or didn't have to. Certainly, that would have killed us.
All right.
But they did, and we were like, hey, they would drive by, no parking, like, hey, make the block, we'll walk it out to you. So, you know, you just kind of have to be adapt to those situations. But yeah, and the other thing about our kind of niche delivery thing was any pharmacy consultant or pharmacy operator will tell you, you have to charge for delivery, like for numerous reasons, but there's significant expense and risk and other things involved.
Sure.
But I didn't charge for delivery, and I refused to at the time because I need them to let me deliver to them. So we never charged for delivery, and we probably delivered at the time when we were downtown 75 to 80% of the prescriptions we filled, which is highly unusual. It's probably exactly the opposite in most traditional pharmacies.
Right.
Delivery is a portion of your overall business.
Right.
So, I mean, that part, again, just out of necessity, just, I will find a way to get it to you. I mean, we would leave Brooke, my technician at the time, she would take meds home with her to deliver to her family members, and I would leave and go deliver if I needed to after work. So you just tried to figure it out as we were, you know, it's kind of like learning to fly the plane while it's in the air kind of thing.
Right. Well, so I know you guys just opened a new store. So talk about your current footprint and talk about, you know, plans for the future.
Yeah. So, to kind of take half a step back in I guess it's probably 2018, we opened in downtown in 2013. And I was kind of kicking the idea around about another location. And like I said, Amy and I are both pharmacists. So worst case scenario, you know, we can staff 2 stores. But I kind of had figured some things out going along, and we decided to open our second location in a much busier area, you know, more brick and mortar, not downtown, not delivery, near the medical district. So, and that store really kind of took off. I mean, the growth, it was maybe a year when our second location surpassed the first location in revenue and volume. So was kind of figuring these things out, and we were still downtown committed. Those folks were loyal to us. When COVID happened, you know, that changed some things because a lot of those folks went home and never came back. So
Right.
our overall volume, and it's probably any downtown, but certainly downtown Baton Rouge, you know, you have kind of highs and lows. And when we started down there, it was really, downtown was kind of ramping back up. So, but after that, after we opened our second location, I kind of had a better idea of where and how to open a pharmacy. We decided to relocate our downtown pharmacy, our original location, it's fairly close. It's in Mid-City. I mean, we're probably a mile or 2 from downtown, but a busier thoroughfare, near more residential areas. And the benefit was we could still deliver downtown. So I'm not, you know, selling this location and opening another one, or like completely cutting ties with these patients and having to start from scratch. Honestly, most of our customers didn't notice the difference because we delivered to them anyway. So it was a good transition where we could open this new location and grow it while still having kind of that, you know, foundation of patients and customers we already had. So that was why we moved. We opened, it's been about a year, March of 2024, as an old bank, which has a lot in common with a pharmacy. A lot of banks and pharmacies, you'll see banks turn into pharmacies and vice versa. Drive through and
Right.
just the general size and footprint area. So we've been doing that for a year, and our volume's probably almost doubled in a year. So it's, I mean, not to like pat myself on the back, but I knew we would be busier and it would grow. And it's turned out to be true.
Right. So, okay. So you opened the original downtown in 2013.
2013.
Okay. So I was wrong. I wasn't an intern then. I was spending a lot of time downtown, and that's when I first came and saw that store. But I mean, I think it is kind of interesting because, like you said, you moved to mid city, so you moved, but you didn't really move that far. And since you deliver so much downtown, like you said, those folks didn't even notice. But you opened up a whole new market, being, a little bit further into town, I guess, drivable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean the location where we moved is half a mile from Acadian and Government in Baton Rouge. It at one point had the three big chains, Rite Aid, Walgreens, and CVS, on that corner. That was three of the busier stores in town. Well, Rite Aid was bought out by Walgreens, and the CVS has since closed that store. So the Walgreens is all that's left there. So you had this really concentrated market now that there was an opening. My model's always been, I'm not intimidated by chain pharmacies. They do a lot of things really well. Real estate, location, advertising, they do those things really well. I mean, really, my strategy's almost been like to open in their parking lot.
Right.
They have that part figured out. Don't try to reinvent the wheel. There's a reason they're at these locations, and it's usually bodies and, rooftops and things like that. So we moved, and a lot of those folks were looking for a pharmacy. So it's really worked out well. But I mean, pharmacy's changed an awful lot, certainly since we graduated, but even since I opened. I mean, there are things that we're doing better or worse, mostly worse, but that I would have never even seen coming when we opened in 2013.
Right. Okay, so let's pivot a little bit, because I know you're involved with Capital Wellness. So talk to me about, I guess, just the broad barriers to entry that there had to have been just getting into medical marijuana in Louisiana. So talk about the barriers to entry and maybe Capital Wellness in general, and like what the state of that whole market is these days.
Yeah, it's really been one of the more fascinating things I've done in my life, and it still is. I mean, it's ever evolving. Honestly, the way I got into it, I mean, not my kind of personal philosophy. I guess I'm a pretty libertarian-minded person, so I was never, but I'm in a professional school, and I have a license through the Board of Pharmacy. Like, I had no personal reason to advocate for marijuana, but really the way I got involved, one of my good friends and his wife, she's a good friend too, they had a little girl that was born severely premature, almost didn't survive, and she's severely disabled, and they've trusted me to take care of her pretty much her whole life, and she had severe epilepsy, and we couldn't control it. I mean, we threw everything pharmaceutical wise that we could at it, and we were barely managing it. And talking with them and kind of trying to figure it out, I think it was their neurologist at like Children's Hospital in New Orleans that said you should consider getting medical marijuana. It's worth a shot. That would maybe help her seizures. And at the time, of course, there was no medical marijuana in Louisiana.
Yeah, that was way before.
Oh yeah,
right.
I mean, that's how like I first. It was even on my radar, just to help her really, or her and people like her,
right?
Or that. And look, I get it. Marijuana is not for everybody, right? But I believe in having all the tools in the toolbox and use the one you need at the time. So, I mean, whether it's chronic pain, whether it's, Parkinson's, whether it's epilepsy, or honestly, whether it's recreational, like I can make the argument that alcohol is a far more concerning danger to society than marijuana, but
Sure.
that's a completely different argument.
Right.
Our focus was medical marijuana and just having access or another option that really was, it's not like it was some noble cause. That was really how I got involved. So as this went on, and I found out after the fact, the wheels were already in motion by some folks that I'm really good friends with now. They had been putting the groundwork in legislatively and at the Capitol and politically and that sort of thing to even start having this conversation. That was already kind of going on. I kind of came in when, I think to get the initial law passed, they put it under the Board of Pharmacy for several reasons, but I think to give it kind of that stamp of formality and approval. And I mean, it fell under them, so it was going to be a licensed pharmacy. And it's funny looking back, like how naive I was. Like, well, I'm going to apply for a license. What? There's only one granted in each of the 9 medical districts in the state. So in Baton Rouge and several surrounding parishes, there was one license. Like, it's kind of comical that I thought I had a chance or I was going to get it. So I asked a patient and customer and a friend of mine who's involved in lobbying and legislative stuff. It's like, hey, this is what's going on. I think it's going to be a somewhat political, operation, but like, where would I even begin? Where should I start? And he's like, I think rather than you try to, create this from scratch, he's like, I've been working with someone who's really good and has this figured out. I think combining the two of y'all, something great could happen. So that's how I met Randy Meir, who's the owner of Capital Wellness. And man, from the very beginning, we had the same vision. We got along great. He was super involved in the groundwork and really getting the legislation passed. And then the Board of Pharmacy ultimately granted the license. They had a committee and it was, again, looking back, I had no idea how extensive all this was. And so we kind of teamed up together, and my kind of goal on it was I was going to be the pharmacist in charge of Capital Wellness, get it off the ground, get it running, kind of help navigate. Again, we were, to use a cheesy cliche, like we were learning to fly the plane while it was in the air.
Right.
And, I know a lot of folks at the Board of Pharmacy and the inspectors, and I generally know how to run a pharmacy. So it's like, we can figure it out. And when we started, it was hyper strict. I mean, it had to be recommended by a medical doctor for a very limited number of disease states, cancer or epilepsy or like the hospice patients with chronic pain, that sort of thing. So in the beginning, it was very slow, very limited kind of patients you even could reach. And then the product itself was, they were still kind of trying to figure that out. So it was really limited. And so there was a lot of factors in the beginning that kind of held us back from growth. And then over the years, and to their credit, the legislature and the Board of Pharmacy has been really good about working with those of us in the industry that know these patients, know what's going on, know what's working and what's not working. And it's kind of evolved. I don't even know when that was, 2018, 2019, maybe. It's changed so much from when we first started, but that was my goal and really, I guess it wasn't like my primary goal, but it was almost like to remove the stigma from this, because there are patients. I mean, I saw patients that got off a significant amount of opiates with medical marijuana. People that were having uncontrollable seizures, control it with medical marijuana. Folks that were in hospice dying. And I mean, there was an article in the newspaper, Governor Kathleen Blanco, when she was at the end of her life, it came out afterwards that she was, the product helped her kind of transition. through that. But it's just evolved so much. But I think it's just such a novel industry, and there really was no playbook for how you could look at other states, but every state regulates it differently.
Yeah, the laws were different. So
Yeah.
it was so interesting because everybody in the whole supply chain everybody was making it up and figuring it out as you went.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, really, and even so much like the other license holders in the other medical districts, they weren't our competitors at all. We were working together.
Right.
We were all trying to figure out. We're trying to figure out which software to use, because it was a pharmacy. It's a licensed pharmacy. It has to have a licensed pharmacist. We had licensed pharmacy technicians, but it turns out we were trying to use a pharmacy software system that you'd use in a traditional pharmacy, which I'm familiar with. It didn't really translate well to that world. Then you would look at the products that were out there from a retail standpoint from the medical or recreational marijuana industry, and it was, you would look at California or Oregon. They had some software programs. Well, like it's funny, like they didn't have a title for pharmacy technician. They had a title called a bud tender, which I was like, I had never heard that term before. It was like a bartender for bud, I guess. But so somewhere kind of like in the middle, and we really just had to kind of figure something out that worked, and it did. And again, to the Board of Pharmacy's credit, like they worked with us through this.
Right.
They didn't have a rule book either, or a playbook either. So we were all kind of figuring it out. But again, not to I'm not saying I'm better than anybody, but having a licensed pharmacist involved gives it a little bit of a stamp of approval that.
Oh, sure. Legitimizes it. Right. Yeah.
Right? And I think that was kind of, especially in a conservative state like Louisiana. And look, I was raised Southern Baptist from North Louisiana. So there's a stigma, a significant stigma to overcome anyway.
Right.
So I don't think you were ever going to go from zero to recreational. And that never was that's not why I got involved anyway. It was, I still think it's comical that marijuana is a Schedule I drug, meaning it only has risk and no medical benefit, but cocaine, OxyContin, and fentanyl are Schedule II drugs.
Right.
I find that to be a bit comical, but that's, way out of my pay grade. So.
Well, you say that, but I mean, I don't know that anybody's more qualified to speak on that than you, but maybe that's a different discussion. But no, I mean, but that industry, it kind of seems to me like maybe some of the, I guess I won't call it insanity, but maybe some of the chaos for you guys, just from what I, hear and see, stores opening, whatever, tangentially, it seems like some of that chaos maybe, I guess, is going away. And now it's, from that standpoint, kind of starting to plane off a little bit, I guess.
Yeah. But I mean, we're still figuring things out.
Right.
It's certainly gotten, and again, all this stuff had to happen either through the legislature, through the Board of Pharmacy, or both. So restricting, this tightly controlled group and just saying, let a doctor decide who qualifies or who doesn't. Would you rather them take 2 milligrams Xanax 4 times a day for anxiety, or maybe this product that, at night and it helps them throughout the day, that sort of thing. So, far greater kind of customer base. One of the biggest hurdles has always been the cost. It's, for a lot of people in the beginning, it was cost prohibitive to even access the product. And I'll tell you in a second why that is, why the biggest driver, I think. But it was also, the DEA, which is huge in our world, the traditional pharmacy world, they're not really involved. And as far as they're concerned, it's a Schedule I drug. Like it's not like the DEA's coming in there to, inspect our store. The other benefit is no insurance companies will get involved or pay for it. I realize a lot of people will think that that's not a benefit, that's a bad thing, but in the traditional pharmacy world, that's like a dream, not having PBMs, pharmacy benefit managers, completely screwing up the whole system for everybody. So those were things that were a huge barrier. Was access, was I think some was still the stigma, but it's kind of funny how quickly people got over that when they or their family members were seeing direct benefits from it. Even some legislatures that were vehemently against this in the beginning ended up sponsoring some of our bills later.
Oh, wow.
Because they saw and heard the benefits. But from an accounting perspective, one of the interesting drivers of cost, I think, is that the federal government still considers marijuana as Schedule I drug. It falls under a section of the IRS code, like 401k. Well, I think it's 280E. And it basically says that if you have a business that is involved with marijuana, you really can't write off anything. And you can't deduct normal business expenses. I mean, there are some exceptions, but essentially we pay tax on the top line, which, as you know, as an accountant, there's a big difference between the top line and the bottom line. So I would make the argument that the price is almost immediately twice as high as it should be because of the federal government.
Right.
So we have to cover our expenses too. So that's one of the, it's kind of funny, like that's one of the drivers of costs.
Right.
So that's been the biggest barrier of entry. But now again, it's a completely different world, and we've figured out a lot as we've gone along.
Yeah. Well, I guess going back to you and Amy's kind of just overall philosophy, because, again, not to blow smoke at you, but I mean, when I've walked into your pharmacy and just kind of, just been waiting in line observing you and Amy both, it's like you're in your natural element, right? And because you talk about your attitude about the original store and all that, but I mean, I kind of see it with, your customers, but also your employees. So talk to me a little bit about like the culture that you guys try and build and nurture, and like just your philosophy on business in general.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that. And again, I wish I could say that, we came up with this great business plan and wrote all these things down and, strategic plan and all that, but it really wasn't that complicated. It's my motto in business is kind of like my motto in life, like treat people how you want to be treated.
Right.
It's really kind of cheesy, old fashioned and cliche, but whether it's me, Amy, our staff, I mean, we don't have a lot of turnover. We have great staff, employees. I mean, they're loyal to us, we're loyal to them. And I guess inherently, it's not like I do some personality test on them, but I think inherently we surround ourselves with people who generally treat people the way we want them to be treated. And I kind of try to dumb it down. I tell everybody, like, what would you do if your grandmother walked into this pharmacy? Like, how would you want her to be treated? And that may mean saying, you know what? We would make more money on this, billing it to your insurance because you're in the deductible phase and your copay is $200. But I wouldn't want someone to do that to my grandmother. Like, you could not even use your insurance, fill it off of your insurance, and it's $40. Like, from a business standpoint, like, that's really idiotic. I mean, right? I would make more money the first way, but
Right.
at the end of the day, that's the right thing to do. So I don't know that I can kind of roll it into like one succinct statement but it's really just treat people how you want to be treated.
Right.
And I think that still matters to a lot of people. We've kind of gotten away from that sterile corporate, everything fast and cheap and delivered. If you notice, people are kind of getting back more into more of a service minded. People pay a premium to have a good experience. So that's, I guess, generally been our motto. But yeah, not say like it starts from the top, but I mean, we all have bad days, and we have. Well, one of the things I tell everybody, like this saying, I don't know who came up with it, some beanhead MBA probably, but like the customer is always right. Like, no, they're not. They're not always right at all. And I've had to fire numerous people. It's kind of funny to see the shock on their face when it's usually treating our staff horribly.
Right.
saying things and doing things that are just inappropriate. And I, I get a little bit of sick pleasure to see the look on their face when I tell them that they probably would be a better fit at a chain pharmacy down the road. Again, not really necessarily a good business idea, but whatever the statistic is, like 5% of the customers are 95% of the problem. In our world, it's probably more like 1%
Right.
or 99% of the problem. But when our staff sees that I care more about them and their well-being than I do about just pleasing an angry customer, you know, that shows in them too. I mean, they treat people like that. And again, we always have bad days, or all have bad days, but we don't always necessarily want to talk to everybody, but that's really kind of always been my motto. Just give people a good experience, be loyal to them, care about them, and they are very loyal to us.
Right. Well, I mean, that's really great. And I mean, just knowing you guys, I think that's very fitting. Okay, let me pivot a little bit now. So these are two questions that we ask everybody that we've been talking to. So first, what is the best and worst career or life advice you've ever got? I'm a little interested to hear what you've got to say about this.
If Amy's watching this, like her palms are starting to get sweaty right now. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I would say probably from my parents. And I mean, Amy's parents too. Like, show up early, stay late, do a good job, treat people the right way. I like to think things will take care of themselves. So I don't know that I was given any life-changing business advice. Do this, don't do this. There were a lot of times, and probably still, that I wish somebody would have not said go to pharmacy school. But I do enjoy it. I really love having our own store, the autonomy that provides. There's a lot of stress involved with it too, but that's probably the best advice I've gotten. And one of the things that I've always kind of done is like latch on to older, smarter people that have done this before and learn everything you can. So, I mean, I'm kind of an old soul anyway, but a lot of my friends are, retiring now, but like super successful pharmacy owners, really involved in the world of pharmacy legislatively, the board. And I'm now involved, and I think probably it's seeing them, and they're now looking for the next generation to hand that off to. So I guess finding a mentor, it's not like we had this formal arrangement where these folks were my mentors, but they've been very good to me, helped us any way they could, shared guidance, advice, what to do, what not to do. That's probably what I would say if I was giving somebody graduating pharmacy school is thinking about opening a pharmacy. Like, that would be my advice, is to find somebody that's done this and done it well that you trust and learn everything you can from it. Mm-hmm. And I don't do everything that way, but it inherently, that's kind of shaped how we've grown and run our business.
Right.
Yeah.
The worst advice?
We'll let the hamster spin a little while at the wheel. I'll come up with something.
Okay. So, all right. So last but not least, since we're an accounting firm, we always like to ask everybody we talk to. So what is just your view on operating your business and your view on operational and managerial accounting in your day-to-day?
Yeah. Great question. And it's not a complicated answer, but it kind of is. But in the beginning, as I said, like, we were so slow, and I was there all day, every day. I mean, I inherently knew the numbers just from being there, but I was able to do a lot of that on my own. And really, it was more to learn the business and the accounting and the financial management and those sorts of things. So I learned it a lot that way. But as you get busier and as this gets more complicated, that's when I hired an accountant to help with some of these things. And some of it may just be like, when do you pay your occupational tax?
Right.
Things that might slip my mind or whatever. But the accounting, and I can't wait until you attract dives into this for us, because the pharmacy, a retail pharmacy, an independent retail pharmacy, has to be the most screwed up business model accounting wise that there is. I mean, we're so dependent on, the PBMs or the insurance payer paying us, and when and how, and there's fees they take back. It's a cash flow nightmare to kind of keep up with all of it. And one of the things that I think the most important thing for a professional accounting firm to look at is, we get stuck doing things the way that pharmacists have always done it. I like having a set of eyes that have no idea how the pharmacy, business model or payment structure or accounting, how it works. There's there's a learning curve to kind of figure out these things, but I really like having a set of eyes. And when you say, like, why in the world are you doing this? And if my answer is because that's the way we've always done it, I'm always open to suggestions.
Right. Yeah. We see that a lot, because it's 2025. There are just so many different software solutions for so many different issues. And, it seems like with software today, there's a lot of efficiencies that, and luckily some of the people on our staff have gotten really familiar with a lot of them. And so implementing it's kind of easy and ties into QuickBooks and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And ours, we have obviously our pharmacy software system is it's not ours. It's very technical and specialized and good to the pharmacy side. That doesn't always translate to accounting or business management in general. So,
right.
It's such a screwed up world. Like there has to be a tremendous amount of opportunity for an accountant or for anybody to in a lot of ways. I'm like this. You always hear like doctors are often terrible businessmen, or businessmen or women, but it's because they're like so specifically trained on whatever it is that they do, that business is an afterthought. And that's really one of the reasons I went back to get my MBA. You graduate from pharmacy school and you do your undergrad stuff. And of course, I took accounting classes and finance classes, but you graduate and, like, I guess I was at least smart enough to know that there was a lot that I didn't know.
Right.
And it was almost just like familiarize myself with being able to read a balance sheet or having a discussion with a bank or, whatever it is. Pharmacists aren't necessarily good business people either. But going back to like those mentors I had, a lot of them really are. A lot of them are incredible business operators. And you could pull them from a pharmacy and put them in whatever it is, and they'd be successful in a short period of time. So there's a lot of opportunity. I don't get to dive. I'm a numbers guy. I really enjoy it. I don't get to do that as much as I would like. I don't get to work the counter and visit with people as much as I like.
Right.
It's more, now I do more like administrative type stuff, which is I'm not very good at. But I'm in that kind of awkward growth phase where I'm probably not big enough to have, like a dedicated person to hire and do that. But my wife would be a lot happier if I moved around less stacks of paper and was more efficient at running the business, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and I know it also makes it really difficult when every time you make a sale, that's not what you're going to collect on that sale.
Oh yeah.
Right.
And and when will you collect it?
Right.
It's, most businesses, again, going back to capital wellness, like most businesses, when you provide a good or a service, there's an exchange and they hand you some form of currency.
Yeah.
Whether it's a credit card or cash or whatever it is. In our world, it couldn't be any further from that. There are exceptions and people pay their copay and that sort of thing, but it's the it's somewhere out there in the ether. Then the needle's always moving. It's really hard to narrow down, like, what do I have outstanding right now? What can I expect, and what can I project for the next month, year, 5 years? It's very, very difficult in our world to do that.
Yeah, it's really unique, and yeah, because we do have in our suite of folks we help, we do have another pharmacy, and it's really been interesting for our team to learn, because it's, like you said, at that point of sale in any other retail store, well, it's kind of done.
Yeah, it's not.
And in your world, like, oh, the party's just getting started.
Right. Party has to, I would probably choose another word to describe it, but no, you're exactly right. And it's so complicated. And the other part is, a lot of that is intentionally complicated and intentionally hidden from the patient, customer, the doctor. I mean, a lot of what we see on the back end, John Q. Public has no idea. And it's intentionally like that, right?
Right.
As a society, we're desensitized to having a copay, a flat copay. And that may not always be the most financially sensible plan, right? And it's so complicated. It's hard to explain to accountants. Imagine explaining that to a legislator on the insurance committee who's recently elected. We have a bill in front of them, and maybe there's a fiscal note, maybe there's not. But in their defense, like, how in the world are they supposed to come in and know home and auto and all the idiosyncrasies involved in that? And our world kind of falls under that same umbrella. And it's, I mean, they have no idea. And I'm not saying that isn't in a bad way. Like, why would they have an idea?
Right. Yeah.
But I believe that it's intentionally complicated by the people in the middle that benefit from it being hyper complicated. If it's that complicated, it's really hard to fix.
Right. Sure. And if it's that complicated, then it's like both parties on the other side of the transaction just kind of shrug their shoulders and say, well, I guess it is what it is.
That's what it is. That's what it's always been. And we're starting to make some headway now. And it's, look, I'm a big believer in transparency. Sunlight's the best disinfectant. Like,
right.
When you can kind of unpack some of these and show whether it's a newly elected legislator or not, the one thing that's kind of universal is generally when you can show someone with real factual numbers that you can move the needle that way. So we've had some success doing that. And I mean, my goal or dream, I guess, is just to kind of uncomplicate some of this so that, hey, here's a transaction from prescriber to pharmacy. We should be able to figure out where the money's moving around in the middle of this.
Right.
And it's almost always at the detriment of the independent pharmacy and the patient.
Yeah, right. Sure.
And the federal government in the case of Medicare Part D, which is, that's the elephant in the room that will have to be addressed and very soon, I think. I mean, it's, especially with the baby boomers kind of retiring and all getting on Medicare right now, like, there's so much waste and there's so much money being just blown, really, which also means there's a lot of opportunity there too.
Right.
So,
yeah.
But yeah, that's accounting is an enormous part of what we do. And so much so that I had a crazy idea a few years ago of telling Amy, like, why don't we just convert this over to a 501c3 and run a nonprofit and just, I mean, honestly, it may be, you may qualify for some grants like that. You could pay, me as the pharmacist, a salary. Maybe that's the answer. Or maybe that's, what is under our nose that everybody's missing. That's kind of sad, isn't it?
Right.
You would have to even.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's really telling if a small business owner is saying, that seems to me to be
a better idea.
The path of least resistance, right?
And I'll tell you, it's funny, and you really appreciate it when you are a business owner, whatever it is, but there's this myth in society that you own a business, you're rich or you're wealthy. And I can assure you, and you see the numbers on the back end, the business owner is always the last to get paid, and it's not always rainbows and butterflies. But
right.
The autonomy is what's so rewarding to me.
Yeah.
And I don't have stupid corporate policy. I mean, our staff might think differently, but, I don't do stupid things because somebody says we're supposed to.
Right. Well, that was a great chat, man. I really appreciate you coming in and talking to us today. And if you guys enjoyed that one, we'll have many more coming up shortly. Thanks for watching.